Hey, welcome back to the Juice Bar. So, in our last episode, which ended up being about a week ago, where I was covering a agent I've been working on, and the conversation and the new learning was importing, connecting the agent and HubSpot to trigger the actions and then outputting the agent's acts and tasks and kind of the output back into the HubSpot instance. And um, one question was asked, which is, how do we ensure good data is coming back into HubSpot? And this was really a genius question, and even more interesting because inside or outside of using, right, irregardless of using an AI agent and bringing AI into the picture, this is a conversation that I have over and over with clients in terms of keeping your CRM data clean. And, the essence of this is that it's like this. Let's say you have a salesperson and they're an idiot. And now you go and you motivate that idiot. Guess what? You still just have a motivated idiot. And it's really the same thing, right? So if your data is not good, then the automated agent or the HubSpot automations or any CRM operations that you deploy are simply going to act as a motivated idiot. And that doesn't really serve anyone. But the problem is no one wants to work on keeping their data clean. It's like a junk drawer, and you just keep throwing stuff in and throwing stuff in. And before you know it, that CRM doesn't reflect any actual value to grow and build your business. And automating and building workflows to drive insights, health scores, or any other type of activity is really just going to be a waste of time. It's a fruitless, pointless thing. So today I wanted to dive in to kind of what are some best practices around keeping your CRM data clean. And as a starting point, we're going to look at the importance, right? So the importance is, yeah, that we have a motivated idiot, but why does that matter, right? So things that will affect you is you'll have poor audience segmentation if you're unable to build a system either through automated workflows or a automated AI workforce. You're just not going to be able to build a system that segments and identifies, listens to your audience. Another is you're going to lack strategic decision making because all your future decisions. So, an example, I just saw a client today announcing a new offer on their LinkedIn page. And the reason they were able to announce their new offer is because they had clear data from their clients to show what was actually engaging people, what were people buying, and forget buying, is it even a high value return on investment, right? So that kind of leads into this third point, which is if you know who is engaging and if you know how much they're spending and if you know how much it costs you to activate those clients and those opportunities, now you can really drive a strong ROI. And you then can have that data to feedback that allows you to build strategic decisions into the future. So, what is your next offer? Where is the next place you're going to engage and invest heavily for new lead capture, right? And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But that's why it really matters to have this good data. Now, let's talk about implemented structure of the client journey mapping. So this, to me, is one of the most important points, and I come back to it over and over with my clients. And if we could have one single important value, it is understanding what are the stages of the client's journey and what are the triggers that cause them, well, what are the triggers that allow them to move from one stage to the other? And then what are the inputs that we require in order to push them into that trigger point, right? So in order to have clean data, right, frequently I'll take on a client account and I'll look at it, and maybe for a while they were tracking that they scheduled a meeting. And then maybe they were tracking that they clicked on a link or they engaged with an email, right? But they haven't really defined or implemented a structure that says, at this stage, they do this. At this stage, they do this. Now, the beauty of HubSpot is you have the opportunity to have multiple criteria that fit into this customer journey. And you also have, right, and so that's kind of this establishing criteria for transition. They can have multiple things. It doesn't have to be one thing. But the other piece is it can be looking at it from the perspective of a lead. And within the perspective of a lead, there might be an entire series of stages that have to happen, or steps or triggers or inputs that all then lead them into the prospect stage, and then into the customer stage, and then into the disengaged stage. And even as I'm currently working with a professional association, and we're setting up their annual membership renewal automations, there we even have a workflow or a renewal set of renewal stages. So it's invoice sent, internally validated, payment received, and then received their certificate of insurance and their bonding letters, and then officially renewed them for this year, right? As an example. So this is defining that customer journey, and all of the work that we do in keeping databases clean hinges on understanding that process. And of course, it requires that we have consistency and what I like to call compliance among the members of the team that are using the tools and able to affect where an individual contact or individual company within your system falls on that journey. And then this pro tip, I'm just going to go ahead and say, if I had taken the time, now I'm wishing I'd created some flashy red flags and highlights. But my pro tip on this is that by having a pick list or a select style of properties, you can best create something that is organizable and quantifiable, as well as trigger into the future and trigger future actions. So that is a really, really key piece. It also lends an answer to the question that started this conversation, which is, how do we keep the data coming from AI clean? And how we do that is by being able to know exactly what the criteria are that it should feed back into your HubSpot account. So a paragraph talking about customer sentiment and possible next steps and company stages, that's all fine and good. But if you can't put that into a pick list or a B or C selection, then it's never going to work coming into HubSpot in any sort of meaningful way. So the other piece of keeping your data clean is having a automated or an established set of policies that happen on a regular basis. So it's quarterly, annually, biannually, contact audits, whatever makes sense for your organization, depending on the inflow of leads and the frequency of client and contact engagement. Re-engagement campaigns, because we all have. So as an example, I have a client that really never wants to identify a contact as not qualified, even though the client has clearly not met their quantifiable, scorable criteria, which is number of machines and an in-house, we'll just call it an in-house facility criteria. They don't meet the criteria, and yet they aren't removing them. So a way you could work around that is have a regular re-engagement campaign that is, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months later, reaching out with value and using that to suss out whether or not now is a time to connect or re-engage with that prospect. Of course, archiving any disengaged contacts, removing disengaged companies from your target accounts. And also, so this we touched on earlier, your lead source, the quality monitoring. So if every event that you go to gives you a really, really, really high ROI, and then your cold prospecting campaign through Clay gives you really, really crappy, like never generates actual revenue, even though you have a ton of what appear to be high quality leads, guess what? If it's not revenue, that is not a quality source. And we won't know that unless we have a system for capturing and tracking that data. And then finally, mandating this data validation entry. So anytime data comes into your system, we want to make sure that it is meeting a minimum required set of data. In some cases, that could be, so for this client I mentioned earlier, right? At a minimum, we need to know how many machines they have within their facility. And if we don't have that data, it's really, that contact record data is just not even valuable. So building a system to capture that is critical for that client. Another way to get this data, HubSpot is offering free data enrichment credits with every account, and it's going to be based on your service package, but that does exist. And if you aren't using it, you're just kind of, it's silly because it allows you to automatically enrich all of the data and get more clear on what data you have, what data you need, and be able to drive those automated workflows. So at the end of the day, your clean CRM data is really just a competitive necessity. And that is my Juice episode for today. Have an amazing day, and we'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.